I saw the same person 3 times last night on a road where that should have been impossible, and now I'm questioning everything I thought I knew about reality. I need to tell someone what happened before I convince myself I'm losing my mind, because the alternative, that what I saw was real, is so much worse. It started around 10:30 last night. I'd been working late at the office, finishing up a presentation that was due this morning. Everyone else had already left, and by the time I packed up my things and headed out to the parking garage, the building was completely empty. I remember the sound of my heels echoing off the concrete walls as I walked to my car, that eerie feeling you get when you're alone in a big space that's usually full of people. The drive home normally takes about 40 minutes on the highway, but there'd been an accident earlier in the evening. I'd gotten an alert on my phone about major delays, cars backed up for miles. I was exhausted, hungry, and honestly just wanted to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. So when I reached the exit for Hollow Pine Forest, I made a decision I'm still regretting. I took the shortcut. Now, I need to explain something about Hollow Pine Forest. It's this massive stretch of woods that cuts right through the area between my office and my apartment. Most people avoid it, especially at night, because there are no streetlights, no gas stations, nothing but trees and darkness for about 20 miles. The road that goes through it, Old Pine Highway, is narrow and winding, barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass each other. But it's a legitimate shortcut. If traffic is bad on the main highway, Old Pine Highway can save you a good 30 minutes. I'd driven through Hollow Pine Forest maybe 4 or 5 times before, always during the day, and it had never bothered me. It was just a forest, just a road. So last night, sitting at that exit, looking at the GPS showing red lines of traffic backed up on the highway, I figured why not? I'd never driven it at night, but how different could it be? It was just darker, that's all. I should have stayed on the highway. The moment I turned onto Old Pine Highway, I felt the change. The temperature in my car seemed to drop, even though the heater was running full blast. The darkness was absolute, so thick and heavy that my headlights seemed almost useless, like they were being swallowed by the night. The trees on either side of the road were massive, their branches forming a canopy overhead that blocked out even the stars. It felt like driving through a tunnel, claustrophobic and oppressive. I turned on the radio to distract myself, found a talk station discussing politics or sports or something. It didn't matter what they were saying. I just needed to hear human voices, needed to feel less alone. The road wound through the forest, twisting left and right, climbing small hills and dipping into valleys. There were no other cars, no signs of civilization, just trees and more trees and that narrow strip of asphalt disappearing into the darkness ahead. I'd been driving for maybe 10 minutes when I saw him for the first time. The hitchhiker. He was standing on the side of the road, right at the edge where the asphalt met the dirt shoulder. My headlights caught him as I came around a curve, and I instinctively slowed down. He was a man, tall and thin, wearing what looked like a dark coat or jacket. His arm was out, thumb extended in that universal hitchhiking gesture. His face was pale in the beam of my headlights, and even from a distance, something about him made my skin crawl. I've never picked up a hitchhiker in my life, and I certainly wasn't about to start in the middle of a dark forest at nearly 11 at night. I kept my eyes straight ahead and drove past him, speeding up slightly once I'd cleared him. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing there, his arms still outstretched, watching my car disappear down the road. There was something about the way he stood, perfectly still, that bothered me. But I told myself it was nothing, just some guy having car trouble, waiting for a ride. It happened. People broke down all the time. I continued driving, following the twists and turns of Old Pine Highway. The radio was starting to get static, the signal weakening as I got deeper into the forest. I kept adjusting the dial, trying to find a clear station, but everything was dissolving into white noise. Eventually, I just turned it off. The silence that followed was worse than the static, but at least it didn't hurt my ears. About 5 miles further down the road, I saw him again. At first, I thought I was mistaken. I thought maybe it was someone else, a different person also hitchhiking through this godforsaken forest. But as I got closer, as my headlights illuminated his features, I realized it was the same man. Same dark coat, same pale face, same extended arm with thumb out. Standing in the exact same position, on the exact same side of the road, as if he'd been copied and pasted there. My heart started beating faster. This didn't make sense. I'd been driving for at least 5 miles, maybe more. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of me. There were no side roads, no shortcuts through the forest. Old Pine Highway was the only road, and I'd been on it the entire time. Unless he'd somehow run through the forest faster than I'd been driving, there was no way for him to be standing there ahead of me. I slowed down as I approached, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter. As I passed him, I looked directly at his face. He was staring straight ahead, not at me, not at my car, just straight ahead into the darkness. His expression was blank, emotionless. And his eyes, God, his eyes were wrong. They were too dark, too empty, like looking into deep wells. I pressed harder on the gas and sped past him, my heart hammering now. In the rearview mirror, I watched him standing there, unmoving, until the darkness swallowed him up. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there were 2 men, brothers or friends, both hitchhiking. Maybe they'd coordinated, positioned themselves along the road at intervals. It was weird, sure, but not impossible. People did strange things. I just needed to stay calm, keep driving, and I'd be out of this forest soon. The GPS on my phone said I had another 10 miles until I reached the other side, until I was back in civilization with streetlights and houses and normal people. But deep down, I knew something was very wrong. I could feel it in my bones, that primal instinct that screams danger when you're in the presence of something predatory. My hands were sweating, my breathing was shallow, and I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him appear behind me somehow. The 3rd time I saw him, I nearly crashed my car. I'd been driving for another 7 or 8 miles, constantly checking my mirrors, my speedometer, my GPS. The forest seemed endless, the trees pressing in closer on both sides, the road getting narrower. And then, around a sharp curve, there he was again. The same hitchhiker. Same coat, same pose, same blank expression. Standing on the side of the road like he'd been waiting there for hours. I screamed. I actually screamed out loud, the sound echoing inside my car. My foot slammed on the brakes instinctively, and my car skidded slightly on the road before coming to a complete stop about 20 feet from where he stood. We were facing each other now, my headlights illuminating him fully. And for the first time, he moved. His head turned slowly, mechanically, until he was looking directly at me. And then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide, stretching his face in a way that looked painful. And his teeth, I could see his teeth even from this distance, and they looked wrong. Too many of them, too sharp, like a predator's teeth disguised in a human mouth. He took a step toward my car. Just one step, but it was enough to break me out of my frozen terror. I threw the car into reverse and backed up wildly, not caring that I was on a narrow road with no room for error. The tires squealed, and I could hear branches scraping against the sides of the car as I veered too close to the trees. But I didn't stop. I backed up about 50 feet, then threw the car into drive and spun the wheel hard, trying to turn around, trying to go back the way I'd come. But the road was too narrow. I couldn't make the turn. I was stuck, trapped on this road with that thing ahead of me. Because I knew now that it wasn't a man. It couldn't be. No man could appear at 3 different locations miles apart in the space of 20 minutes. No man could smile like that, with those teeth, with those eyes. This was something else. Something that had been using the appearance of a hitchhiker to lure people, to trap them on this dark road in the middle of nowhere. I looked ahead again, and he was closer. He'd moved while I was trying to turn around. He was now only about 10 feet from my car, standing in the middle of the road, blocking my path. His smile had gotten wider, if that was even possible. And he raised his arm again, thumb out, in that mocking hitchhiking gesture. And then he spoke. I heard his voice clearly, even through my closed windows, even over the sound of my racing engine. It was a rasping, hollow voice that didn't sound like it came from human vocal cords. "Going my way," he said, and then he laughed. A horrible, gurgling laugh that made my stomach turn. I made a decision. I pressed down hard on the gas pedal and aimed my car straight at him. I didn't care anymore about what he was or what would happen if I hit him. I just needed to get past him, needed to escape this forest. My car lurched forward, the engine roaring, and for a moment I thought it would work. I thought I'd plow right through him and keep going. But at the last second, he vanished. Just disappeared, like he'd never been there at all. My car shot through the space where he'd been standing, and I nearly lost control from the sudden lack of impact I'd been bracing for. I wrestled with the steering wheel, keeping the car on the road by sheer luck, and then I was past him, racing down Old Pine Highway as fast as I dared. My entire body was shaking. Tears were streaming down my face. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, expecting to see him appear in the back seat, but there was nothing. Just darkness. I fumbled for my phone, trying to call someone, anyone, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. I was in the middle of hollow pine forest where apparently reality didn't apply and things that shouldn't exist could appear and disappear at will. The GPS said I still had 3 miles until I reached the end of the forest. 3 miles. I could do 3 miles. I just had to keep driving, keep moving forward, and soon I'd be out of here. I'd be safe. I'd be back in the normal world where hitchhikers were just people needing rides and forests were just trees and darkness was just the absence of light. But those 3 miles felt like 30. The road seemed to stretch on forever, winding and twisting, and I started to wonder if I was actually making any progress at all or if I was somehow stuck in a loop, doomed to drive through this cursed forest for eternity. The trees all looked the same. The road looked the same. Everything looked the same. I glanced at the GPS again, and to my horror, it now said I had 4 miles left. 4 miles. I'd been driving forward, but somehow I had more distance to cover than before. That's when I realized the GPS was wrong. Or it was lying. Or something was manipulating it, making it show false information to keep me here, to trap me in this nightmare. I looked at my fuel gauge and felt my stomach drop. I had 3/4 of a tank when I entered the forest. Now it was showing less than a quarter. I'd only been driving for maybe 30 minutes, but somehow I'd burned through half my gas. I started sobbing then, really sobbing, because I understood what was happening. This wasn't just a forest. This was something else, some pocket of wrongness where the normal rules didn't apply. Time and space and distance, they didn't work right here. And that thing, that hitchhiker, he was part of it. Maybe he was the guardian of this place, or maybe he was its avatar, the physical manifestation of whatever evil lurked in Hollow Pine Forest. I wiped my eyes, trying to clear my vision, trying to focus on the road. And that's when I saw the sign. It was old and weathered, barely visible in the glow of my headlights, but I could just make out the words, Hollow Pine Cemetery, 1 mile. A cemetery. In the middle of the forest. I didn't remember seeing any mention of a cemetery on the map, but then again, nothing about this night had made sense. Part of me wanted to avoid it, to stay on the main road and keep driving. But another part of me, the desperate part that was running out of options, wondered if the cemetery might have answers. Maybe there was a caretaker's building with a phone. Maybe there were other people there. Or maybe, just maybe, I could find some explanation for what was happening. I slowed down when I saw the turnoff, a smaller dirt road branching off from Old Pine Highway. There was no gate, no barrier, just an opening in the trees. I made the turn, my car bouncing over the rough ground, and followed the narrow path deeper into the woods. After about a minute, the trees opened up, and I found myself in a clearing. And there, spread out before me, was the cemetery. It was huge, far larger than I'd expected. Rows and rows of headstones, some upright, some tilted, some fallen over completely. They stretched back into the darkness, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. In the center of the cemetery was a small stone building, probably a mausoleum or a chapel. There were no lights anywhere, no signs of life or activity. Just the headstones and the building and the oppressive silence. I sat in my car for a moment, engine running, debating whether to get out. Every instinct told me to stay in the car, to turn around and get back on the road. But my phone suddenly buzzed, startling me. I looked down at it and saw that I had a signal. Just one bar, but it was something. I could make a call. I could get help. I grabbed my phone and tried to dial 911, but the call wouldn't go through. I tried again. Still nothing. I tried calling my sister, my best friend, anyone. But every call failed, the screen showing, "Call failed," before the connection even attempted. I wanted to scream in frustration, but then I noticed something. I had received a text message. From an unknown number. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Get out of the car," the message read. "Come to the chapel. It's your only chance." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This had to be a trap. Obviously. Someone or something was trying to lure me out of my car, out of my only protection, and into that cemetery. But then another message came through. "He can't enter the chapel. Holy ground. You'll be safe. But you have to come now. He's coming back." I looked up from my phone and scanned the area around my car. I didn't see the hitchhiker anywhere, but that didn't mean he wasn't close. He'd proven he could appear and disappear at will. And if what the message said was true, if he was coming back, then sitting in my car in the middle of this clearing made me an easy target. I made a decision that I'm still not sure was the right one. I grabbed my keys, made sure my doors were unlocked so I could get back in quickly if needed, and stepped out of the car. The cold hit me immediately, a bitter, unnatural cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. It seeped into my bones, making my teeth chatter. I looked around nervously, then started walking quickly toward the chapel, my feet crunching on the gravel path between the headstones. The chapel was maybe 50 yards from where I'd parked, but it felt like miles. Every shadow looked like it might be hiding something. Every rustle of leaves in the wind made me jump. I kept looking back over my shoulder, expecting to see the hitchhiker materializing behind me, but the clearing remained empty. My car sat there with its headlights on, looking small and vulnerable in the vast darkness. I reached the chapel and tried the door. To my relief, it opened. The hinges creaked loudly, echoing across the cemetery, but I didn't care. I stumbled inside and immediately pushed the door closed behind me, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. It was an old-fashioned lock, just a simple bolt that slid into place, but it made me feel slightly better to have that barrier between me and whatever was out there. The inside of the chapel was small and simple. There were a few wooden pews, an altar at the front with a dusty Bible on it, and some old candles and holders along the walls. Moonlight filtered in through a small stained glass window, casting colored shadows across the floor. It smelled musty, like old paper and decay, but it felt safer than outside. There was something about the space, some quality I couldn't quite define, that felt protected. Sacred. I pulled out my phone again, hoping the signal had gotten stronger, but I still had only one bar. I tried 911 again, but once more the call failed. I was about to try texting when I heard it. A sound outside. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps crunching on the gravel, getting closer to the chapel. I froze, barely breathing, listening. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. There was a long moment of silence, and then a voice. His voice. The hitchhiker. "I know you're in there," he said, and his voice was different now. Less human, more of a hiss or a growl. "You can't stay in there forever. Eventually, you'll have to come out. And when you do, I'll be waiting." I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stood there in the darkness of the chapel, praying that whoever had sent me those text messages was right, that he couldn't enter holy ground. The door handle rattled as he tried it, and I heard him pushing against the door, testing its strength. But the lock held, and after a moment, the rattling stopped. "This is my forest," he continued, his voice seeming to come from all around the chapel now, as if he was circling it. "Everyone who enters belongs to me. You took my road. You accepted my invitation. And now you're mine." I didn't accept anything. I shouted back, surprising myself with my own voice. "I was just trying to get home." He laughed that horrible gurgling laugh. "Oh, but you did. You saw me the first time and kept driving. You could have turned around. You could have taken a different path. But you chose to continue. That was your acceptance." I realized with growing horror that he might be right. In folklore, in old stories, accepting a ride from a supernatural being or continuing on a path after seeing a warning always meant you'd entered into some kind of contract or agreement, even if you hadn't realized it. Had I inadvertently bound myself to him by passing him 3 times and not turning back? "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What I want from everyone who comes through my forest," he replied. "Your life. Your energy. Your fear. It feeds me. It sustains me. And in return, I let you stay here forever, part of my collection." "Collection?" I whispered. "Look outside," he said. "Look at the headstones. All those names, all those dates. They're all mine. Everyone who's gotten lost in Hollow Pine Forest, everyone who's seen me and kept driving, everyone who thought they could escape. They're all here now, buried in my cemetery, feeding my forest with their essence. And soon, you'll join them." Tears were streaming down my face again. I pulled out my phone and looked at those text messages, hoping for another one, hoping for some guidance or instruction. But there was nothing new. Just those 2 messages telling me to come to the chapel, that I'd be safe on holy ground. But for how long? I couldn't stay here forever. Eventually, I'd need to leave, need to get back to my car and try to find a way out of this nightmare. As if reading my thoughts, the hitchhiker spoke again. "Sunset to sunrise, that's how long the protection lasts. Once the sun comes up, holy ground means nothing. You'll have to leave. And I'll be waiting." I checked the time on my phone. It was almost midnight. Sunrise wouldn't be for another 6 or 7 hours. Could I wait that long? Could I stay in this chapel, alone in the darkness, with that thing circling outside? And even if I could, what would happen at sunrise? Would I really be able to leave, to get to my car and drive away? Or would he be able to enter the chapel once daylight broke and drag me out? I spent the next few hours in a state of pure terror. I couldn't sit still. I paced back and forth in the small chapel, jumping at every sound, every creak of the old building settling. Occasionally, I'd hear the hitchhiker outside, sometimes laughing, sometimes whistling a tuneless melody, sometimes just breathing heavily right next to the door. He was playing with me, I realized. Psychological torture, breaking down my defenses until I was so scared and exhausted that I'd make a mistake. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed with another text message. I nearly dropped it in my haste to read it. "There is a way out," the message said. "But you have to trust me. When the sun rises, leave the chapel and go to the oldest grave in the cemetery. You'll know it when you see it. Lay your hand on the headstone and speak your name 3 times. Then run to your car and drive straight out. Don't stop. Don't look back. No matter what you see or hear, don't stop until you're out of the forest." "Who are you?" I typed back quickly. "How do you know all this?" The response came after a long pause. "I was like you once. I got trapped here. But I found a way to resist him, to exist between life and death, to help others who get caught in his trap. I can't leave, but I can give you a chance. Do exactly as I say, and you might survive." I wanted to ask more questions, wanted to understand, but another message came through before I could type anything. "He's getting suspicious." No more messages. "Remember what I told you. Oldest grave. Your name 3 times. Run to your car. Don't stop. Good luck." And then nothing. The signal on my phone disappeared completely, dropping to 0 bars. I was alone again, with just those instructions and the sound of the hitchhiker prowling outside. The next few hours were the longest of my life. I tried to stay alert, tried to prepare myself mentally for what I'd have to do when sunrise came. But exhaustion was wearing me down. My eyes kept drooping closed, and I had to fight to stay awake, terrified of what might happen if I fell asleep in this place. Finally, through the stained glass window, I saw the first hints of dawn. The darkness outside was slowly being replaced by a dim, gray light. The sun was rising. It was time. I stood by the door, my hand on the lock, waiting. The hitchhiker had been quiet for the last hour, but I knew he was still out there. I could feel his presence, malevolent and hungry, waiting for me to emerge. As the light grew stronger, I took a deep breath and slid the bolt back. The lock disengaged with a loud click that seemed to echo across the cemetery. I pushed the door open and stepped outside. The cemetery looked different in the early morning light, less frightening but somehow sadder. All those headstones, all those lives ended too soon. I scanned the area, looking for the hitchhiker, but I didn't see him anywhere. Maybe the protective effect of the chapel lasted a few moments after sunrise. Maybe I had a small window of opportunity. I started walking quickly between the headstones, looking at the dates, trying to find the oldest one. Most of them were from the 1800s and early 1900s, but I needed to find the very first grave, the original burial. I moved deeper into the cemetery, past row after row of markers, and then I saw it. It was set apart from the others, surrounded by a small iron fence that had mostly rusted away. The headstone was ancient, the inscriptions barely legible, but I could just make out a date, 1687. Over 300 years old. This had to be it. I unlatched the fence gate and approached the grave, my heart pounding. I placed my hand on the cold stone and spoke clearly, "Emily Jackson. Emily Jackson. Emily Jackson." My name, repeated 3 times as instructed. For a moment, nothing happened, and I thought maybe the whole thing had been a lie, a trick to get me out of the chapel. But then I felt it. A warmth spreading from the headstone into my hand, up my arm, through my entire body. It was like being wrapped in a protective embrace, like invisible armor settling over my skin. And then I heard him scream. The hitchhiker, somewhere behind me, let out a sound of pure rage and frustration. I didn't turn around. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life, my feet flying over the gravel paths, past the headstones, toward the clearing where I'd left my car. I could hear him behind me, chasing me, but he sounded further away than he should have been, like the protection from the grave was keeping him at bay. I reached my car, yanked open the door, and threw myself inside. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition, But somehow I managed it. The engine roared to life, and I threw the car into gear, spinning the wheels as I accelerated out of the clearing and back onto the dirt road. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing at the edge of the cemetery, watching me leave. His face was twisted with fury, and he raised his fist as if cursing me. I didn't slow down. I drove that dirt road like a rally driver, bouncing over ruts and rocks, not caring about the damage to my car. When I reached Old Pine Highway, I turned hard and accelerated even more, racing through the forest as fast as I dared. The GPS was still acting strange, still showing impossible distances, but I didn't care. I just kept driving, following the road, trusting that eventually it would lead me out. And it did. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only about 15 minutes, I saw the trees starting to thin out. Up ahead, through the branches, I could see lights. Real lights, street lights and building lights and the blessed glow of civilization. I almost cried with relief as I burst out of Hollow Pine Forest and onto a normal road with normal traffic and normal people going about their morning commutes. I drove straight to the nearest police station and tried to tell them what had happened. They were polite but clearly thought I was either drunk or crazy. When I showed them the text messages on my phone, the messages from the unknown number, they were gone. Deleted. Like they'd never existed. The only evidence I have that anything happened is the damage to my car, the scratches and dents from driving through that forest, and the mud caked on my tires. I haven't been back to work yet. I called in sick, told them I needed a few days. I've been researching Hollow Pine Forest online, trying to find information about the cemetery, about the hitchhiker, about anyone else who might have experienced what I did. And I found some things. Old newspaper articles about people who disappeared after driving through the forest. Forum posts from years ago describing similar experiences, seeing the same hitchhiker at multiple locations. Most of those posts are incomplete, ending abruptly, as if the people writing them never got a chance to finish. But I also found something else. An obituary from 1985 for a woman named Margaret Chen. According to the article, she disappeared while driving through Hollow Pine Forest and was never found. Her family held a memorial service, but her body was never recovered. And at the bottom of the obituary, there was a quote from her sister. Margaret always said that if anything happened to her in that forest, she'd find a way to help others escape. I believe she's still there, still trying to keep people safe. I think Margaret Chen was the one who sent me those text messages. I think she's been trapped in that cemetery, in that state between life and death, using whatever power she has left to guide people to safety. She saved my life, and I'll never be able to thank her. I'm writing this down now as a warning to anyone who might read it. Stay out of Hollow Pine Forest. Don't take Old Pine Highway, no matter how much time it might save you. And if you're ever driving at night and you see a hitchhiker standing on the side of the road, especially if you see him more than once, turn around immediately. Don't pass him 3 times. Don't accept his invitation, intentional or not. Because that forest is hungry, and the hitchhiker is always looking for new additions to his collection. And while Margaret Chen might be there to help, I don't know how much longer she can hold out against him. One day, her strength might fade, and then there'll be no one left to send those guiding messages, no one left to show the way out. I survived Hollow Pine Forest, but I'm not the same person I was before. I jump at shadows now. I avoid driving at night. And I'll never, ever take another shortcut for as long as I live. Because some shortcuts don't save time. Some shortcuts steal your life. And some roads, once you start down them, don't want to let you leave.